Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone that's joining us today. My name is Boy Pelosiopela here from NETCB, and I'm the sales representative. Thank you once again for joining us for our digital signatures overview webinar today. Thank you for taking out the time from your busy schedules to come and witness this auspicious occasion. All right, so if you have any questions going forward in the webinar, please do tag them along in the Q&A box or in the chat field. And if you have any other questions that you feel are going to be slipping your mind or whatever the case may be, please just feel free to raise your hand, and myself and Justin will be there to take on any questions you might have. Additionally, please note that these webinars are hosted every Thursday on a weekly basis, and you can check out our website. And down in our calendar, you'll see the other upcoming events, and maybe they might be to your liking. So please join those as well. Also, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go and check out all the social media platforms, as well as our Facebooks, and so forth. So if you do want to rewatch this webinar, note that it's going to be up in the next 24 hours on our website, so you can check it out, show it to your colleagues or to your cat or whatever you have at home. All right, over to you, Hendrik.
Thank you very much, Bokomoso. I'm your impromptu host for this afternoon, while our actual presenter, Kobus Burgers, is getting a vaccination shot. He should join us in a minute or two. So I'll deal with the first part of the presentation. So today we will be talking about digital signatures and just do a basic overview. But I will start with the introductory side of the presentation, just a brief introduction to NETCB. So we move on to the next one. So, okay, so our objectives for today is just to talk about digital signatures and understanding the concepts around digital signatures. And then our second objective would be e-signing solutions and what NETCB recommends as a solution for your e-signing requirements. Okay, so just as a part of the agenda, we're going to start with doing a brief overview of who we are in terms of NETCB, and then we'll look at signatures overview according to South African law, and then also we'll look at our recommended digital signature platform. And I'm hoping Kobus will be with us by the second stage of this agenda. Okay, so just about NETCB. This is our 19th year of business. We started back in 2003. We consider ourselves to be technology innovators rather than just your typical technology resellers. We do much more than just reselling technology. We also do our own custom software development, as well as our own system customization, etc. A lot of our solutions are quite complex to implement, and in those scenarios you can't just have a one size fits all type approach. So you have to do a lot of customization, and we pride ourselves in doing all that customization, etc., in-house and internally. We do have a global reach as an organization. We've done solution implementations across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. These implementations range anything from records management, identity management, cybersecurity solutions, digital workspaces, etc. And we've even recently sold our first piece of software to the United States as well. So we're actually fortunate enough to add them to one of our locations now as well. So in saying that, we do have a strong focus on the African continent, and more specifically in South Africa, where the majority of our business still revolves around the African continent. Okay, so our solution and focus areas revolves around digital workspaces. Oh, there we go. Welcome, Kobus, freshly vaccinated. We also have solutions around the cybersecurity offerings, and then also the last focus area is our hybrid cloud offerings. And at this point, Kobus, let me hand over to you if you're happy. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Are you ready with your screen?
Yes, let me just quickly check it here and catch my breath.
So let me talk briefly about the cybersecurity portfolios. That's mainly my portfolio. Then I'll hand over to Kobus for the rest. The cybersecurity portfolio deals with really addressing all aspects of the cyber kill chain, from things like lateral movement, privilege escalation, vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, security information, event management solutions, etc. And yeah, we've got a lot of expertise in all those areas. And looks like you're ready, Kobus.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm 100% ready on this side. Hendrik, have you already started with the slideshows? Or
Yes, we're at, you can skip the first couple. That one you can
you've already
skip.
gone through this agenda. Okay. You already done the overview.
And the next one.
Solution
One more.
areas.
There we are, Kobus.
Okay. Okay, no, thank you very much. Sorry about the delay, but it took a little bit longer than anticipated to get the vaccination. And at least here, I have it. My first vaccination done. Okay. And I think as we said, what the topic today is we're going to talk about electronic signatures. We're first going to talk about what are these electronic signatures, as well as what the law says, as well as the different platforms available. And then we're going to discuss a little bit on our chosen platform. Now, first of all, electronic signatures in the first place, they come in very different forms. They're almost everywhere nowadays. But in the definition in terms of the United States eSign Act, they actually have got a specific eSign Act. It was defined as an electronic signature is an electronic sound, symbol, or process attached to or logically associated with a contract or other record and executed or adopted by a person with the intent to sign the record. So even an audio clip can almost be regarded as an electronic signature nowadays. The bottom line is an electronic signature does not need to look like a handwritten signature like we have in a traditional form. Now, we start to look at the legal foundation for electronic contracts and signatures. And here we're going to specifically refer to the South African law. Now, in our law, a written signature is not necessarily required for a valid contract. Or contracts are generally valid if legally competent parties reach an agreement, whether they agree verbally, electronically, or in a physical paper document. So that is in effect what electronic contracts and signatures, both parties need to agree that we will sign the agreement in terms of an electronic signature. And you will also notice that most of the electronic signature systems will always prompt you, do you agree and accept by signing this document electronically that it is a binding signature? And that becomes part of the record of the signing process. Now, in terms of section 13.2 of the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, or ECTA, specifically confirms that contracts cannot be denied enforceability merely because they are concluded electronically or through data messages. Now, that was already defined in 2002 when this act came into existence. So actually, since 2002, we were allowed to use electronic signatures, but that really never became a reality in our daily lives until the pandemic started. And people started to realize we need to find an alternative way to get multiple parties to be able to sign agreements. Further to this, it is to prove a valid contract, parties sometimes have to present evidence in court. Now, most of these leading digital transaction management solutions can provide electronic records that are admissible in evidence under Section 15 of the ECTA Act to support the existence, authenticity, and valid acceptance of a contract. So you start to see that because of most of these e-signing solutions keep a digital record and an audit trail, it's actually far easier to prove an electronic signature came into existence by the relevant parties than when someone says, well, it's not my handwritten signature on that document. That then becomes a very costly exercise to prove in handwritten signatures that it was actually a falsified signature, because then you need to get handwriting analysts, etc., to identify whether it was a fraudulent signature. It's far easier to prove the legal foundation and the evidence of an electronic signature in the first place. Some of the use cases for using a standard electronic signature, and I'll explain in a bit what is a standard electronic signature. Any HR documents such as employment contracts, benefits, paperwork, and other new employee onboarding processes, commercial agreements between corporate entities, including non-disclosure agreements, procurement documents, sales agreements, consumer agreements, including new retail account openings. I think most of you may have experienced this when you go, for example, to Edgar's and you purchase something, you actually sign a digital signature or an electronic signature as part of the purchasing process. Real estate documents, including lease agreements for residential and commercial real estate not lasting for a period of more than 20 years. Now, listen, it's very important to understand that time period of 20 years when it comes to real estate documents. There's also use cases for other types of electronic signatures, which we call a digital signature, or an enhanced electronic signature, or a qualified electronic signature. That's what the AES and the QES stand for. South Africa's advanced electronic signature is required for suretyships. For example, in terms of the General Amendment Act of 1956, signing as a Commissioner of Oaths, Justices of the Peace and Commissioners of Oath Act. For that, you will need an advanced electronic signature or a qualified electronic signature. And I will explain the differences between those signatures in a bit. There are other use cases where electronic signatures other than the standard electronic signature may be required, but the law does not specify the type of signature that is required. It can only be signed with an advanced electronic signature as defined by the ECT Act, which in practice is the equivalent to a qualified electronic signature in Europe. Okay. So if the law does not specifically state that the type of signature that is required, it can only be signed with an advanced electronic signature. Okay. Now, an advanced electronic signature is a type of electronic signature that meets the following requirements. It is uniquely linked to the signatory. It can identify the signatory. It is created using means that are under the signatory's sole control, and it is linked to other electronic data in such a way that any alteration to the said data can be detected. Okay, that is what we mean by an advanced electronic signature. A standard electronic signature means it's quite often merely an image of a person's signature that is placed in a document, and then the entire document may get a digital seal that it can no longer be altered. With an advanced electronic signature, it means that each and every individual signatory on that document has got a unique identity attached to that digital signature that has been placed on that document. Now, a qualified electronic signature is a special digital signature implementation that has met specifications of a government, including using a secure signature creation device and being certified as qualified by either that government or a party contracted by that government. Okay. There are, however, certain cases where we are not allowed to use a digital or electronic signature. And it's very important to understand this. And the only reason why this is still the case is because there were specific clauses in those laws that states that an ink or a handwritten signature is required on the document. And those acts have not been amended yet to incorporate the signing of documents digitally or electronically. Now, in this case, we're looking at documents such as handwritten contracts for the transfer or sale of immovable property, including sectional titles and mortgage bonds, deeds and long-term leases for a period of more than 20 years. Then we also have wills and codicils, bills of exchange, and the licensing of intellectual property information, intellectual property transfers, and employee invention agreements. Because you can even see the acts that we're referring here to are from 1978, 1993, etc., long before digital electronic signatures actually existed. Now, what are the real differences between an electronic signature versus a digital signature? Now, an electronic signature is, in short, the product of any electronic means of signing, okay? Where a digital signature is the product of a specific cryptographic process called a public key infrastructure. Now, an electronic signature, first of all, the document is sealed at the end of the signing process, and the signatures are images inside the document, and there are no timestamps linked to the individual signatures inside that document. A digital signature, on the other hand, is sealed during the flow and at the end of the signing process. Okay, that means each and every individual signature has got its own timestamp and certificate, and the whole document at the end of the day is also sealed at the end of the signing process. We have signature level, document level TSA timestamps, and there are 3 separate encrypted audit logs that can be used as a body of evidence on who has actually signed this document, or the various signatures that we have within that environment. Now, here is a very typical example when it's a document that's been opened up using Acrobat, for example. And in this case, we can, you can see here a standard electronic signature. In this case, it was signed by DocuSign, for example. But when I right-click on the signature, it says I can only copy the image. There's no actual record of this actual signature. There's an attached secondary page that will indicate who has signed this document as part of the audit trail, but the actual signature inside this document cannot be individually identified. Now, with a digital signature, you can see here each and every signature has got its own ability to be validated. And if I right-click on the signature, it allows me to validate the signature. So that is the real difference between when we look at the difference between the two type of signatures. A typical example, we've been signing our documents on a regular basis now, our proposal documents, tender documents, etc. But this is a typical example of a digital signature where when I click on it, it can tell me the status of the signature, that it is valid, as well as all the details, the signing time of the signature, who the person was, etc. It actually takes my identity information as registered with Home Affairs that it is showing in this case. And we will discuss this in a bit later from now on. Now, practical issues using electronic signatures. Now, when we talk about electronic signatures in this context, we may often refer to a digital signature also as an electronic signature, because a digital signature is by default also an electronic signature. But a pure electronic signature or a standard electronic signature is not necessarily a digital signature. Okay. Now, first of all, we look at the legal sufficiency versus enforceability. Now, the ECT Act answers the question, is it a signature? It does not answer the question, is it your signature? So attribution will be a matter of fact, just as it is with a wet signature that we have. So the ECT Act specifically confirms that contracts cannot be denied enforceability merely because they are concluded electronically or through data messages. But what we have now with electronic signatures or digital signatures is that we can, through the transaction management, provide electronic records that are admissible in evidence under Section 15 of the ECT Act to support the existence, authenticity, and valid acceptance of a contract. Now, it is then far easier to present this kind of evidence where we only would have had a wet signature on a document. And it can, if you don't then have witnesses that can confirm that it was you that actually signed on that document, and the witnesses do not retract their statements, or you can still go and say, no, I've never signed this document. And then the opposing party will need to bring in some handwriting analyst to determine whether it was, in fact, you who signed the document. That can actually become a very costly exercise in the process. Now, some of the considerations that you need to take if you're going to implement digital signatures within your environment. You always need to look at the type of documents that you are using within your organization and whether any of those documents may be excluded from the ECT Act. Another consideration is, can they be electronic signed and recorded under some other rule or statute? The ECT Act elevated any form of electronic communications as having the same value as wet ink written documents, and that includes signatures. And I have already listed the list of exclusions specific in terms of property transactions and wills. Most laws, but you must also understand, such as the PFMA and the Companies Act, have been affected by the ECT Act, even if no specific reference is made to an electronic document or signature. Then the ECT Act prevails. Now, we've had this issue. We as a company has been engaging with a lot of government-orientated business from a tendering process, etc. And there's always been huge arguments around this, specifically when we talk with the procurement divisions, and they always say, no, we must have handwritten signatures. We eventually requested from CETA whether when they issue tenders, and the tender documentation specifically says ink signatures are required, we now have written confirmation. We received written confirmation from CETA. Even if the documents state that, it is not required, and that digitally signed documents are accepted as long as we submit the digital version of the document alongside with the printed versions of the document. So there is absolutely no regulation that can withstand in court at the moment, even if the documentation or the rules of engagement stated that ink signatures were required, because those rules are in contradiction of what the law states, and then the law will prevail, even if the published requirements for the tender submission stated that ink signatures were required. It is not required at all, because the law states that in cases of like this, digitally signed documents, as long as they are submitted alongside the paper documents, will be valid signed documents. Another thing that we also need to look at when you look at the considerations in implementing digital signatures is also how your eSign platform will address the following. First of all, will it have the capability of providing a consumer consent, or the other party must give consent? Does it have the capability to provide notice and delivery mechanisms to notify you either via SMS or via email that you have a document that must be signed? It also must, during the signature process, clearly indicate the intent and attribution of the signatures inside the document. It must also provide the recipient's right to retain copies. That means that when I sign this document, at the end of the day, the system must submit a copy of the document to myself as well. And there must be document integrity and audit trails available during this signature process, because those parts will be required as evidence when we deal with cases that may get in court. Now, there's always this thing, what is holding us back? First of all, there's always miscommunication. You always hear the argument, no, we may need this as proof in court. That is miscommunication in the first place. No, it is required for important documents. That is miscommunication and misinformation. It's the case of saying we require ink signatures for legal documents. That is not correct. Even if it's for consumer agreements, that is not correct at all. It is misinformation that is being communicated to users and communities. And the last issue is also the resistance to change. Okay, people will go and say, no, we require this for government audits, or we require this for international agreements. That is not true at all. The law is very clear what documents are excluded and why they are excluded, and what documents are included, and what type of evidence need to be collected for a valid electronic signature or digital signature to exist on a document. Full stop. That is the end of the story, actually, because there's nothing that needs to hold us back in terms of this process. Now, there are specific benefits when we have a digital signature platform. It means that documents can be signed remotely. That, I think the pandemic has showed how critical it has become, that we very quickly need to be able to sign documents. And because a lot of us are working from home, and especially now that we are on a lockdown level 4 again, we have a large number of people working from home. It is impossible then to circulate a paper document within a certain time frame, and it can take weeks at some organizations if you need to circulate a paper document on that basis. Whereas with electronic documents that need to be signed, it can be done within a mere hour or a couple of minutes, where all the signatories can review the document and even sign the document digitally, and it is a valid signature, and it can move on to the next signatory in the process. Electronic documents can also include required fields. So quite often when we do need to sign contractual agreements, paper documents, we quite often need to handwrite everything inside the document. Whereas with electronic documents, we can specify that certain fields are required and enforce that those fields are actually filled in before the document is in fact signed. It also allows us to know the real-time status where the document signing process is in the circulation of signing, obtaining signatures. Another major enhancement is it reduces the cost and hassle by eliminating paper. I still remember how we had to have documents signed for the national government in Tanzania, and they clearly made it very clear to us the type of paper, the color of the paper it needs to be printed on, and then we had to courier the document. And every time there was a mistake, we had to restart the entire process from the beginning. And every time to courier a document to the city of Dodoma in the middle of Tanzania was an exercise of between 2,000 and 3,000 rand, because that is how much it costs to courier a paper document to that location within that country. Whereas now with electronic signatures, it actually makes things a lot simpler, and we can very quickly get documents signed. A lot of our agreements with our software vendor partners like Micro Focus, IBM, etc., all their documents we have signed digitally by making, and they all have got different platforms they are all using. Another thing that it helps you, an organization, it improves your client experience. If you're working with citizens, with the general public, consumers, it really improves that client experience in the process. Because you can customize the look and feel, you can add your own branding to most of these e-signing solutions. Another issue is it costs less, because less administrative time is used to process electronic documents than it takes to process paper documents. Now, NETCB, as an organization, we evaluated around just over 15 different e-sign platforms. Most of them are cloud-based. What we also did find that most of them were just electronic signatures, meaning that at the end of the process, they will sign the document. Some of them did offer digital signatures as an option, but then obviously at a far more expensive rate. And at the end of the day, after evaluating all these different platforms, there was only one platform we found that actually integrated with our South African government identity systems, and that was Sony Flow. What we mean by that is that for every person that is invited to sign a document, as you enroll on the system for the first time, it validates your identity against your identity number with Home Affairs. In fact, a lot of the banks are making use of their platform for the KYC documentation that we all have to go through from time to time to prove our identity and who we are, etc., to the banking organizations. But that is just one of their solutions. But the process of registering for the first time on their platform, it validates your identity number and that you are actually a valid person within this country. We did a bit of a comparison. We took the top few that we actually looked at. We looked at DocuSign, eSign Genie, Eversign, PandaDoc, Sunnyflow, Signing Hub, SignNow, and Adobe. And we looked at the different pricing. But the one thing that really stood out for us, there were only two that had on-premise capability, because we still had clients that that requires the stuff to be on-premise. So Sunnyflow does offer a cloud-based and on-premise capability. DocuSign also have got an on-premise capability, but they only make it available inside the United States. It's not available for the rest of the world. Another thing that we had with Sunnyflow is that the data that is stored is within South Africa, whereas all the others are cloud-based and USA-based, where the data is actually stored. The only one was Signing Hub, which is hosted in South Africa by Law Trust, and they branded it to something else, but it is Signing Hub at the end of the day, where they also host the service in South Africa. Another thing that was important for us to look at the APIs and the use of the APIs. All of them have got cost associated with the API, whereas with Sunnyflow, we had free access to their API. Another thing that was unique is that Sunnyflow was the only solution that validated citizen identity verification. That means that in every country where they are present now, they're already present on a number of continents, from Australia, South America, in Europe, and as well as in Canada, where they are actually validating the signatories against the citizen identity systems within those countries. So that when you enter your identity number, it actually validates your first name, full name, details, as well as your identity number, that it is in fact valid. So another nice thing about Sunnyflow, it's made in South Africa. It's a South African company, and that also gave us even more reason why we partnered with them as an organization. They're already quite active within the financial services, banking, insurance, healthcare, some government departments already using their technology. In the legal space, a lot of legal firms already making use of their software, as well as the ability for companies like NETCB to OEM their software as if it is one part of our solutions, that you don't even see Sunnyflow. We are in fact in the process at the moment with for the next release of our records management platform, where we will have a very tight integration with their software. That where NETCB will also be hosting it ourselves, as well as providing the on-premise capability of the system to our clients. This is just some of the Sunnyflow clients. You'll recognize quite a number of organizations, even CIPC, for example, the Financial Intelligence Center, Land Bank, Discovery, for example, is using it within their environments. So there's already quite a number of well-known organizations on this list. Now, one of the other considerations why we also decided to choose Sunnyflow as a solution platform for NETCB that we can recommend to our clients was the fact that they are incredibly flexible in terms of their deployment options. Obviously, the different types of deployments does have different costs associated with it. The on-premise can be done. It can be in your enterprise data center or a hyperscale data center such as Microsoft Azure, or any one of the telecoms data centers like at Liquid Telecom or BCX, etc., in their data centers. If you start to look at the platform choice, they're not dependent on a specific hypervisor. It can also be modernized using Kubernetes, for example, that allows very high scalability of the environment. Even within legacy deployment, such as Windows Internet Explorer type of IIS type of environments. Sunnyflow also hosts their own platform, which most of us are still using at the moment. We are using it within the Sunnyflow hosted environment. But also the fact that different components of the solution can be hosted in different mechanisms or different locations even. It also have got interfaces for document management, for workflow systems. It has got its own document routing capability that is based and included inside the environment. We can have specific network attached storage to store the documentation if it needs to go on premise, but we still making use of the cloud-based solution, but the documents we keep on premise. So there's a host of these type of deployment options that we have with Sunnyflow at the end of the day. So when we look at the whole Sunnyflow mechanism, is the ability to do an end-to-end business process automation, where, first of all, within your existing business systems, may generate events or data that creates documents that need to be routed, okay? There may be even templates, standardized templates for some of your documents that needs to be routed. So we can then apply templates to some of the documents that come out of these business systems. And we can even have different types of signing workflows that can be reused and recycled all the time for the routing of these documents. And then it can conduct the signature operations using its PKI, public key infrastructure operations. And as I mentioned, the rule-based routing. And when we're done with this whole signing process, it can send the documents and the data back into our business systems and allowing, if there are any specific workflows inside these business systems that need to continue, or maybe obtain these signed documents for the workflows on your enterprise business systems to continue. So it really allows us for that end-to-end business process automation to take place by integrating their APIs within a client's environment. There are basically the 6 basic process automation blocks that form part of their entire solution. First of all, we sit with the data that may be coming from ERP, enterprise content management systems, document management systems, or any other core systems within an organization. It then goes through a Sunnyflow event handler process that triggers the Sunnyflow events that may require various workflow steps that need to be created, or existing workflow templates that may be called, and then apply these templates. It will then submit such documents for a signing process through their interface. During this signing process, they also route it to all the different signatories until the process is completed, and we can then grab those documents and get them back into our ERP, ECM, DMS, or other core systems within such an environment. So at the end of the day, Sunnyflow gives us that maximum non-repudiation built into each and every signature, okay? Now, the following components are placed inside every signature that we sign with a signing flow document. We first of all have a digital certificate. There's a long-term validation. That record can be that's embedded and will last for a very, very long time on the document. There's also a PDF audit because they are compliant with the Adobe advanced signing mechanism as well. So Adobe Acrobat recognized their signatures immediately inside as individually signed, not for the whole document, but individually signed signatures. It's a secure audit log that are written and sealed into the document using stenography. There's also the identity factor mechanisms. We can link Sunnyflow also with your on-premise identity systems, such as LDAP or Active Directory, or using OAuth or SAML or any other options available. There's also the time stamping that takes place during the time stamping authority that they are using. The document is also tamper evident. If anyone tries to tamper with the document, it actually removes the signatures of the document, or it will tell you that this document has been tampered with. The audit trail of the actual signing process, the Adobe accredited trust list, as well as the European Union accredited trust list, is also embedded inside it, as well as the due location, the exact location where that person actually signed the document. Now, we have some advantages with Sunnyflow in South Africa. It is local South African. They do have a global footprint. They're very focused on the security and the compliance requirements. And the other advantage that we have specific in South Africa is that their development operations as well as support is based in Johannesburg. So they are around the corner. And over the last 18 months that NETCB has been working very closely with them, we've actually built up a very strong relationship with Sunnyflow and understand how they work, the support processes, the integration that we need to do from our side. Every time we've logged a support query with them, they very quickly responded, and we are actually very satisfied in the way we've been working with Sunnyflow. As we said, it is our preferred e-sign platform now, for all the reasons that we've listed. We are a certified Sunnyflow partner. We also are now an OEM partner on the NETCB's HybridRMS. We're also going to provide the hosted and on-premise options. We also provide customization services for Sunnyflow for clients that's implementing Sunnyflow, whether you want to implement it in the cloud or on-premise. And we also provide training services for people that adopt this platform. A typical engagement that we do when the client wants to engage with us on this type of platform, the first process is to go through a pre-assessment process where we define all the use cases within an organization. Then we will go through a process of defining what kind of integrations will be required. That allows us to develop a proposal. Then we do a proof of value where a proof of concept can be run with the client before we will conclude a final proposal. And then it's up to your supply chain processes to procure a solution. Any questions so far? Let me just quickly check.
There's questions. It's an anonymous attendee, and the question is Sunnyflow an accredited authentication service? I suppose that service provider in South Africa, accredited under the requirements of the Electronic Communications Act of 2002 to provide advanced electronic signature?
Yes, in fact, they are. Sunnyflow is accredited, and I know you're referring to the SA Post Office that is supposed that there's an agency that was created, and SAPO is one of the digital certificate organizations. But unfortunately, SAPO's system crashed in 2019, and they still haven't been able to get everything back up and running. The organization that is also responsible for doing the accreditations, luckily Sunnyflow actually got their legal accreditation. They are unfortunately a bit dysfunctional at the moment, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you send emails to them or can't try to contact them, email addresses come back undeliverable, and there's basically very little responsiveness that we get from them at the moment. But Sunnyflow is already accredited. They are actually, in fact, more accredited from various legal opinions that we also obtained in terms of their requirements. I know there's a number of tender documents and government regulations that say it must be a certified digital signature that's been issued by SAPO. Unfortunately, it is impossible today to do such a signature. That is why we only make use of the Sunnyflow Global Sign Certificate Authority, because the SAPO's mechanism and the South African government's mechanisms for certificate authentications are non-existent at the moment because of the crash that has taken place, and they have not been able to recover the environment as yet. And the last update I had from the situation was about 3 weeks ago that I received notification that there's no possibility of obtaining certificates from them at the moment. So please make a note of that. If you need to go out on tender and issue this, if you specify it must be a SAPO-based certificate, no one will be able to respond with a SAPO-based certificate. It is impossible. Because we will also not advise any organization to make use of that service until they can demonstrate they can keep the system stable and sustainable for at least a period of 5 years before one can really start to adopt their signatures. And when they, as a certificate authority, is also accepted on a global basis, because even if you are using a SAPO-based digital certificate, it will not be trusted. They are not part of a trusted chain at the moment. Even when they started, it still was, you still had to manually go and import their certificate authority to make it a trusted certificate. We only make use of trusted certificates that are part of a global network of trust. That allows you to verify the authenticity of those certificates. I see there's another question whether we will be sharing this presentation. By all means, we will be sharing this presentation to the attendees, as well as the recording of this webinar should be available by tomorrow on our website, with all the interruptions included. Okay, but let's quickly do a quick demonstration. Let's see, what are we doing for time? Oh, we still have got like 5 minutes left. If I quickly jump in here. I'm going to quickly log on to my Sunnyflow environment. Now, one of the nice things about Sunnyflow is this kind of dashboard it gives you. I can see at the moment we don't have any pending documents. I haven't got anything circulated. There's been a couple of cancelled documents. Sometimes if there's a mistake in a document, you can reject it and say, no, I can't sign this document. You can see I've got 69 completed documents at the moment. But it's a very simple process. I'm just going to show you a straightforward mechanism on how you can very quickly submit a document for signing. I'm going to quickly find the document that I can import. I'll just quickly find the document here that I can use. Quickly going to check here. Hold on for a second. I'm just grabbing for one of my templates here. Now, one of the documents that we have, for example, is that when someone joins the organization, they need to sign a document containing various components. The first page that I can have see here, you can even rename the document here. You can even split pages into different. If it's a one document, you can even go and split the pages into separate documents if you need to. A portfolio allows you to have like a documentation pack that needs to be circulated. If you want to add a custom message, you can add the custom message. And I'm quickly going to proceed here. Here I can now go and add, first of all, I'm just going to add myself as an example. And you can see, because I'm already registered, it's got all my details. But if I want to add another signer, I will need to add the person's details as well as the person's mobile number, because we can actually send SMS messages as well during the process, but also allow someone, if they do not have ability to create a digital signature, they can actually make use of their mobile device to sign it using your own finger to sign a document in the process. Once I've added everyone, I can go to the document prepper. In this case, I'm the only person that's going to complete this document, so I'm going to do at least 2 fields. So I'm going to quickly place a couple of fields on this document. The nice thing is I only need to do this once for this type of document because I can save it as a template. Even here where I want to have like tick boxes in terms of whether you want someone to make certain choices, I can add tick boxes on the document, etc. And then I can actually save this as a template. Either in my case, it will be a personalized a personal template that I can reuse, or I can go and I can load from my existing templates. You can see I already have got quite a number of templates that I have created on the system that I keep on using from time to time. And then the next step will be to maybe ask for some additional information. Like the undersigned, you actually can make it so that the person do not actually need to complete it because it already knows who is completing this document. It will populate that field automatically. And then I also want the person to sign the document, and I can place, this is where you need to go and sign the document. If there were multiple people that were required to sign this document, all their names will be here, and you just click on the different names to indicate who is supposed to sign that document. I also may want to populate the date field over here automatically as well. I even may ask it, do they need to initial every page? That is quite often a requirement. And then the next step is I can now go and release the document. Now, I'm not going to save this now as a template because I didn't complete each and every field. Now, what it is doing now, it is preparing the document for me to sign because I'm the only person signing it. It's going to actually ask me, you can do this right now because you just completed this document and you can sign it now. A very important factor that you need to understand here, it's only the people who is preparing documents for signing like this that you need to license. The people participating in signing the document, they do not require licenses. because that can be 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 100,000 people you may want to send documents to that they may need to sign. They do not need licenses, okay? Because of that custom message that I added, it will actually pop up that custom message here. While I'm waiting for that, I've also in the meantime received an email in my mailbox. And I'm quickly going to drag it across. I received an email where it says there's a new document in Sunnyflow that requires your signature, and it allows that person now to open up the document. And that can also be done straight from your email client or from a mobile device. If it is the first time that someone has been invited to sign, there's another message that pops up, and that actually says, do you agree in signing this document digitally? Remember, it verifies in the process whether you are agree with the process of digitally signing this document. So in my case, it says actions required, and I quickly click on that. And it will not allow me to sign a document before I've completed certain fields. So I can quickly just use this to jump to the different fields. No, I don't have any allergies. And I can also now put my initial. I'm going to say I'm going to draw my initial. Now I'm just going to quickly do something here. And there we go, and save my initial and apply it to all the pages. And you can see it's already inserted my initial over there, and it's already populated my name and the date. And all I need to do is now click on that page, and it has signed the document. The reason why it's taking a while now, and especially compared to other e-signing signature solutions, it is processing the PKI in cryptography for my signature on the document. And if there are 20 different people that signed the document, it needs to do it for each and every individual person, not the entire document as a whole. Because this document has been completed, I can quickly go here and I can actually open it from here. And we even use this mechanism to issue, for example, permits, etc. You can see here, there's my tick mark in the document, and there's a digital signature that is on the document. It says status is valid, signed by me. So it's a global signed signature, etc. So everything has been included. I also, in a couple of minutes, and then I've just received it now. I just want to open it up in Adobe. And I quickly open it up. Open with Adobe. Just waiting for Adobe to launch. There we go. And you can see there's my signature. It says all signatures are valid. I can even open up the signature panel. And here it shows me my different components. Signature is valid, etc. I can double click on that, signature properties, and there is all the signature information in terms of this. And there's my GPS location as well, where I actually signed this document.
Well, if there's no other further any question, if there's no further questions, thank you so much, Curvis. Really appreciate you taking your time. And please, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any other questions, feel free to email Curvis or myself, and we'll definitely get back to you. And remember, do subscribe to one of these webinars. They happen every Thursday, so whichever one is to your liking, please make sure you check us out. All right. Enjoy your Thursday, everyone.